Caution. An accidental release of a wound spring reel could result in injury to the hands. Exercise caution and use gloves when rewinding the reel. The trip line should be examined daily for kinks, frays, or loose swages. As soon as any deterioration is noted, the trip line should be replaced. The procedure for trip line replacement is the following. Wind the spring power reel to its maximum in the direction indicated by the arrow stamped on the cover, then back off one full turn. There are 3 holes punched into the drum on the reel, a large center hole and 2 smaller holes to each side. Once the reel is wound, use a small pair of vice grips clamped to the bottom ring of the reel and jammed against the solenoid to prevent the reel from unwinding. Pass the trip line through the hole in the trip block. Bend the end of the trip line into a tight spiral using a pair of pliers. Insert the end of the trip line through the large center hole of the drum. Fish the trip line out through the small hole to the left of the center hole with needle nose pliers. Pull 12 to 14 inches or 30 to 35 centimeters of line from the hole and pull it around the drum in a clockwise direction and insert the trip line into the small hole to the right of the larger hole. Look into the larger center hole of the reel where you'll see a locking finger. Push the swage on the end of the trip line past this locking finger. Pull the line up over the finger and into the slot between the finger and the drum. To assist in the above step, bend a piece of lock wire into a U shape. Insert the bent end of the U into the large center hole of the reel. Push the trip line through the U and pass the finger on the reel. Pull on the lock wire to lift the trip line outward past the finger. Push the trip line into the slot. Remove the lock wire. Pull the free end of the trip line to remove any slack around the drum. Important. Looking from the back of the spring reel, ensure that the section of the trip line that passes from the center hole in the drum to an outside hole is outside the swage blocks and parallel to the drum. If not routed correctly, it might not restrain the end of the trip line with its 2 swage blocks, resulting in potential fouling of the 2 cast lugs on the head, which locate the reel anti-torque plate. This will stop the trip line from winding up onto the reel. The spring reel must be backed off one full turn after being fully wound. This stops the reel from coming to the end of its travel in normal operation. Overrunning the reel can break it. To avoid destroying the internal spring, never allow the spring reel to free spin once wound. With the trip line fully connected to the drum, note that there is a swage block about 1 to 2 inches or 2 to 5 centimeters from the drum. This block will be stopped by the safety keeper cast into the head should the trip line break where it enters the reel drum, thus ensuring the trip line cannot come free of the control head. While holding the reel securely, release the temporary lock. Allow cable to wind in gradually. Do not let the reel free wind. Use gloves to protect your hands from injury. Caution. The spring reel must be unwound before its securing nut is loosened. Loosening the nut on a wound spring reel could result in damage to the reel and/or injury to the hands. Locate the spring reel locking nut. It's on the back of the control head. Ensure the spring reel is unwound, then remove the nut. Important, before removing the reel from the control head, note the position of the anti-torque plate which is attached to the bottom of the reel. It should be between the 2 cast lugs on the head. Remove the old reel. Position the new reel in place with its anti-torque plate between the two cast lugs in the head. Check the clearance between the reel and the cast head. A gap of 1/8 inch or 3 millimeters will eliminate rubbing. Old-style fabricated heads only include enough spacer washers to ensure the reel does not rub on the head. Secure the reel shaft with an Allen key. The shaft is attached to the spring, and it should not be turned while the nut is being tightened. With the shaft locked, tighten the reel nut securely using a torque wrench to about 40 foot-pounds or 584 Newton meters. Make one burr in the cast head next to the nut to stop the nut from loosening. Loctite may also be used on the nut. Install trip line as per section 13.1. Note: Bambi bucket control heads manufactured prior to June of 1993 were machined by Jig. Control heads manufactured since were CNC machined. The CNC heads do not require any fine tunings of the catch. The earlier heads all had an angle stop for the horizontal solenoid links. The newer CNC heads have a stop bolt in place of the angle stop. Check the trip line for play in the tube and snug up swage blocks with swaging tool if necessary to ensure tube is snug between the bullets. Next, remove the catch spring and the return spring. Remove the bottom cotter pin on the catch clevis pin, and then remove the catch clevis pin and the damaged catch. With the trip line installed, place the new blank catch in its slot and slide the point in against the tube on the trip line. Keep the tail of the catch in place under the ball bearing. For jig heads, a small amount of metal may have to be filed off the point of the catch to allow the clevis pin to fit through the block. File or grind this amount off the point of the catch. File the edges just enough to remove any burrs. Now, install the catch with the catch clevis pin and check that the filed point just touches the tube on the trip line. When the solenoid retracts, the tail of the catch must clear the bearing in order for the trip line to be released. Operate the solenoid by hand to check that the tail of the catch will clear the bearing. If it does not, remove the catch and grind the tail of the catch so that it will clear the bearing. File edges just enough to remove any burrs.